Spoiler alert, branding is an emotional connection. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Do you might recall back in August of 2025, Cracker Barrel was like the topic of discussion in various news outlets in these internet streets because they attempted to adjust their visual brand. And if you're not up to speed, let me bring you up to speed of what happened. So, Cracker Barrel, which certainly is a restaurant that serves Southern meals, it has breakfast all day. They basically attempted to refresh their logo, and their main logo really hasn't been overhauled since 1977. I'm not going to say how old I was in 1977. Stay focused. All right. And so they basically stripped away the Uncle Herschel character and old country store wording, really kind of replacing it with a more clean text only logo that was inside kind of this barrel shape that's a part of their brand and their logo. And what they were going for was more of a sleeker look, more digital friendly, that would resonate with younger audiences. Well, guess what? It didn't land well, and the backlash was pretty swift and pretty fierce. There are even Fox Business quotes that there are customers who call the new logo bland, soulless, and basically this whole attempt to refresh and rebrand their visual branding, which was really just centered around their logo, ignited kind of like this viral storm online and across social media. And so recognizing that there was a growing uproar from like different types of customers, and their money got hit, right? So after a stock plunge and heavy criticism, Cracker Barrel basically reversed course, and within days they restored the classic kind of old timer logo and reassured their fans that the Uncle Herschel character that's a part of the logo wasn't going anywhere. And that's what happened. So, but I want to like remind you, this is not the first time that consumers have made an uproar over a brand change. One of my favorite series is the Power series with executive producer 50 Cent. Do you watch that? Have you watched that? Well, during the premiere of Power season 6, which was August 2019, it's something about August, their theme song, Big Rich Town, and if you know it, you probably humming it right now, which was originally performed by Joe featuring 50 Cent, was replaced with a remix version by Trey Songz. Trey Songz is from Virginia. Did y'all know that? Anyway, fans of the Power series went bananas. They went wild on social media, and they were outraged because they didn't want the song to change. They liked the old song and they didn't want it to change. So 50 Cent like really responded really swiftly, and literally by the third episode of season 6, the original song was back to this series. Now, while this change was not related to visual branding, the theme song is still a vital part of the brand of a show. And so, I do want to say this kind of think piece you're listening to. Let me just be upfront. I am not putting on the carpet whether Cracker Barrel's rebrand was right or wrong. I'm not here to discuss that. But from the lens of a marketing coach, from the lens of a branding coach, I think there's a couple of things for us to chew on that are small business owners. And so when I work with entrepreneurs and leaders, I use a 6-part marketing framework called the Platform Builder Framework. And this situation is, I really feel like a perfect case study. And I can see the Cracker Barrel debacle with their logo really being talked about in marketing classes for years to come. And there's a couple of things that I want to kind of pull out. The main thing that we need to come to grips with is that our brand is an emotional connection. And specifically, the visual branding of your business is an emotional connection. There are certainly parts of your brand that customers and potential customers can see and can feel. And then there are those pieces that they can't see and feel. But the pieces that a customer can see and feel, there is an emotional connection. And so the visual elements of your brands are things like logos, brand colors, your website, packaging, brochures, all of that. These things aren't just decoration. They literally aren't. They aren't just pretty things, but they carry feelings. They carry feelings, they carry identity, and they carry emotion. And so for some Cracker Barrel customers, the Uncle Herschel, character symbolized, tradition. And that reminds me of my grandma's cooking. But I can't negate the fact that there are and there have been those that feel that there are racial undertones with the imagery that was linked to the actual logo that Cracker Barrel is using. And certainly that is felt and thought for some in the African American community, which I am a part of. So that's a whole nother show. I'm not going to dig into that. But what I do want us to focus on and think about and kind of learn from this case study is that your visual branding and your branding has an emotional connection. And so the new logo that Cracker Barrel tried to go with, kind of really minimalist logo, which is in line with major brands. So if you look at somebody like a Nike, they just have a swoosh, right? If you look at major brands, most major brands have very simple and minimalist logos. Let's face it, Cracker Barrel didn't change their name. They didn't change the colors. They didn't even introduce a new graphic. They just tried to streamline what they had. However, the piece that caught Cracker Barrel off guard, and which may catch some of your customers off guard when you try to do this, is that there was such a strong connection for their vocal customers. There was a strong emotional connection to that current logo, so much so that their vocal customers just went in an uproar. Now, I do want to emphasize the vocal customers, because I am sure the entire customer base did not feel as heated about this logo update. And I would guess that the branding team with Cracker Barrel had focus groups, maybe even hired a brand strategist, and these pieces didn't come up out of that. However, they underestimated the power of their logo. And so what are the takeaways for a small business owner? Number one, recognize that branding is emotional, and specifically your visual brand is emotional. And so always anchor your visual brands in your brand story, anchor that in your values, in your brand promise. And you also want to kind of ask yourself, what emotions do my visual brand evoke for my target audience? That's like a question you want to ask. And if you warrant a shift or a new direction or a rebrand, bring the customers along for the ride. And Cracker Barrel really, in their own words, admitted that they didn't do a good job explaining why the change mattered. They even said, we could have done a better job sharing who we are and who we will always be. And so the why behind this rebrand must be shared, like when you have a brand that people are connecting with, and that helps to give your audience clarity and confidence in the direction that you're going. And some might say, well, when is a rebrand warranted? Well, a rebrand or rebranding happens a couple of times. Number one, if your brand is stale. So like if you haven't touched it in years, so I mentioned their logo, 1977. Okay, they haven't touched it in years. So if you haven't touched it in years, that's one reason for a rebrand. Another reason is if you have shifted what you're offering, and so therefore your customer base is shifting and you want to appeal to your customer base. That's a reason for a rebrand. And so those are just examples. But what happened in this case, in this kind of case study that we're talking about with Cracker Barrel, is, they really gave mixed signals to the market. So, they first came out and said, okay, we're modernizing, we're making our logo more sleek. And then with the uproar, they had to backtrack and say, oh, no, we're going back. And that left people confused. That definitely left people confused. And so as a small business who may be considering refreshing your brand, just consider sharing the vision with your audience. The good thing is, our audience might not be as large as Cracker Barrel, so we might be able to navigate it a little bit better than they did. But let them know, why now? Who does this new brand and this refresh speak to, and why the heart of what you do remains the same. Also, make sure you're kind of telling a story around this refresh and re-update of your brand, and not just kind of like launching this shockwave, and weave in the pieces. So I'll give you an example. For instance, our brand colors at Mitchell Productions are navy blue and hot pink are the two core colors. We have a few others, but the two core colors. The reason why navy blue was selected was when this company started. I started as a web designer. You would not believe the amount of people who say, they paid for websites, got ghosted. They paid, it's not what they wanted. They, can't find their web design. And there was a lot of mistrust in the web design field and in the graphics field, to be honest. And so the color navy blue, which FYI, colors do have emotional meanings. They do spawn emotion. Navy blue and blues are trustworthy. They're trustworthy, they're reliable. I'm going to be here. And so that's one reason why I selected navy blue. The hot pink speaks to that we work mostly with women, but it also speaks to the excitement and the creativity, which is, a part of that. Now, we no longer provide web design services, but are fully working with business owners on their marketing and their branding strategy. And it's exciting work, right? It is exciting to put your brand together and get out there and promote it. And so that's just a little backstory of the colors that we have, but bringing your audience along, because the branding that you have, specifically the visual branding, is an emotional connection. And so Cracker Barrel's rebranding fiasco, is really more than like this kind of PR drama, but I really feel like it's a case study in visual branding and its emotional connections that we have with our customers. So hope you enjoyed this bonus podcast episode. I'm Sharvette Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Productions, and we work with high achieving women entrepreneurs and a few lucky men to help them tell the story of their business through marketing, branding, and visibility. We are a marketing and professional development firm based out of Richmond, Virginia. Connect with us on all social media sites, and leave us a comment if you have a question or a thought.